Hello, hello. We are trying to go live with the stream.
Hello, hello.
Yo.
Hold on. Yay.
We're live?
Yeah, we're live.
We're actually live.
Yeah, it's just...
Okay. All right. We are live, ladies and gentlemen. So you can see on...
You know what? I'll bring up the chat here. So if we go...
Okay, that's cool. How is everyone doing? We can't actually see your messages just yet, but we will soon. We're just getting everything set up. Awesome. The mics are working. That's good. That's good.
I'm just trying to get back to
We're just trying to get the chat open, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about an ideal Fallout game, right? That we want your help making. Okay. So for some reason, it's not showing up here, but okay, we got it.
You're gonna do it?
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. So you tell them what we're doing, because guys, there's gonna be some really cool stuff, basically.
Also, sorry, just real quick, should we just have it
Open, so you can see the chat. Turn the sound off as well. So get rid of. Click it directly. No new tab. Straight to it. Just yeah. No. Okay. There's the video link. Just click that, and then we'll yeah.
Okay, hold on.
So turn the sound off.
Yeah.
Turn the sound off.
There
All
we
right. Welcome everyone. What's poppin'?
Hello.
Oh, there are so many people here. That's awesome. Okay. So I'm going to start editing it. If you want to tell them kind of
All right.
What we're doing and what this whole stream is going to be about.
All right, guys. So we today we've done before videos called like Ideal Elder Scrolls 6 or Ideal Fallout 76 or Ideal like Fallout New Orleans, and basically it's just where we take a idea for a game and we basically try and make a game, like the world around it, the game world, some of the characters, and sort of like the premise of the game, just something we'd like. And because we've sort of covered a lot of like gameplay things before, like, you know, what special stats and like how the skills and stuff look like, or what you could do, like we're not going too much on the technical side. It's more like just if we were to make up a very just fun Elder Scrolls game, not Fallout game that we'd like. And this one is basically set up off one of the New Vegas endings, where the Great Khans, if you remember that faction, is hold on, mic bad.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know.
Is it all?
How are our mics, everyone?
If the audio's, hopefully the audio's a problem, but basically it's about the Great Khans, and they supposedly, according to the ending, they head off to, and this is if you help them go and forge their own destiny or whatnot. So they go off into the plains of Wyoming and reconnect with the followers of the apocalypse and forge an empire, a mighty empire, with new like transportation and governance and economics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So the gist of it is, I mean, how do you want to start?
says mine is weak as the audio.
Is it actually
I think
weak
mic's
as?
is fine.
I think the mic's fine.
Oh, it's lefty righty.
I mean, we can't fix that, guys. So
Yeah, I have no idea how to fix that.
my apologies. So okay,
But yeah. So basically, that's what we're doing here today. We've already written a lot of this, and as you can see, open on this little paint.net file I've made, is we've just made a map. We've taken an area of, it's not just Wyoming, because we came to the conclusion that Wyoming is a lot of plains and it's really big, and we didn't want to have a game world that's sort of just all plains, basically. So this is actually part of Utah as well. You can see the state line there. Basically, roughly a third of the map is actually Wyoming, where we've got a lot of the Carnate faction there. And then we've got... I've got to explain the Carnate too, but and then we've got parts of the very tip of Salt Lake City at the top, and we've got Ogden and stuff. Basically, all this area has a bit of lore that we can build upon. So there's the Great Khan stuff, and then there's also stuff with Honest Hearts and Joshua Graham and how that built. Like, we know little bits, like New Canaan was a place in Ogden, and that got destroyed and so on. So we're building off all of this this law to make, basically, this is all made up. This is a complete just idea that we've set up. And it's set 30 years in the future from the events of New Vegas.
Yep.
So it's 2312 would be the year.
So and we're going to get a lot of input, well, as much input as we can from you all, and kind of what you think would be cool. Like there's all kinds of things we got to talk about. We got to talk about creatures, like mutated ones that are going to return, things that we're going to add to the game based on the wildlife and stuff of Wyoming, but also Utah. We're going to be talking about the environment itself. So like what environments and biomes there are on the map.
I mean, like a quick explanation of the map here. So I told you where we picked. We picked somewhere that has a bit of different biomes and stuff as well. Like we didn't want it to just be plains, but we also kind of, these red lines are just arbitrary. They're basically just for us to divide it by regions in terms of like what we wanted for each area. So like Michael's been going through and we've sort of been like talking out creatures and towns, and you'll see that the colors there are sort of faction controlled areas. And then you'll see like little towns and places that are sort of like free. So along the lines of, you know, like Novak or Good Springs in New Vegas, they would have a reputation meter, but thank you, Thomas Cross, for the super chat. Hey guys, love the content. Binging FudgeMuppet will get me through work days. I even made my latest Skyrim build in the style of a FudgeMuppet video. 2,500 words in your style. It's a blast. Well,
2,500 words.
Good stuff.
That's pretty good. That at our speaking speed would be 13 minutes. 13 minutes.
Yeah,
you might have
like
a build video on your hands there.
Yeah. But no, thank you. Really appreciate that. But yeah, guys. So basically, like we've sort of talked about, we want you guys to contribute and sort of build upon what we've talked about, and perhaps some of these ideas may be incorporated into the final video, because we're creating this so we create a video. It's going to be a big sort of hour-long piece video, and we're going to be talking about all the world-building factions and all the good stuff. So I guess really, I feel like there's the map. You can have a look at it. We've also got like a neat little... I'll just show you 1 second.
It's happened for them because we got the delay on our side.
So we've also got it set up so we can see how geographically it's different as well. But yeah, so I guess we should probably start with
the timeline.
Timeline, yeah.
Probably.
All right.
Probably. All right. So I mean, I can just get my notes out, but
well, let's talk about, so because it builds off New Vegas canon, we decided the canon for this. Now, well, we did it in the least disruptive way, which is by neither NCR nor Caesar's Legion wins, and basically New Vegas is independent. Whether that's you independently, the Courier, or the Mr. House.
Man or House, doesn't matter.
Yeah, so it's sort of vague. So all you know is that there's just an independent New Vegas Mojave area. And the Great Khans, they fled and went to Wyoming and reconnected with the followers of the Apocalypse. Which is basically a humanitarian organization that have knowledge about medical stuff and science stuff, yada, yada. So that helps these, what are essentially just a gang of raiders, become a burgeoning empire. And our setting is going to be about the burgeoning empire. It's not complete yet, but you know, it may never get complete depending on the actions that you take. But yeah, so the other part to factor in is also the Honest Hearts ending. So it's where Joshua Graham and the Dead Horses, along with the Courier, defend against the White Legs and keep Zion Valley for the Sorrows and the Dead Horses. And Joshua Graham also spares Salt Upon Wounds. So he gets his nice little happy ending. And that's important because he's going to sort of change the fate of Utah, which then changes the context of our current world map.
And it also has the White Legs like kind of pushed out and attacked by the 80s and kind of spreads them across into certain parts of our map. We got another super chat. Thank you very much, Cole McLean.
Here's some money to inspire to make another Witcher video.
We'll have to get Drew on it.
We'll get on it.
We'll have to get Drew on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel like you two should switch voices and names. Michael looks like a Scott and Scott looks like a Michael.
I don't know.
Were you in the chess club?
Than't you very much.
$3. Thank you very much.
Is that chess or chest? It looks like chest.
Oh, chest club.
I know we're in the chess club. I actually technically I was
Yeah.
Technically, I was when I was a young child. I was in the chess club.
Also, so Power Gaming says make ammo rare because nobody's making anymore. We look. There's certain concessions. We'll just talk about this now. Like there's certain concessions you have to make in the Fallout universe because we don't want to distance ourselves from like realistic. For starters, a lot of Fallout's radiation and all this kind of stuff is based on 50s understanding of radiation and what the future would look like if their understanding of radiation from then was true. So, you know, you have all the big monsters and ghoulified humans and stuff like that.
Yeah.
On top of that, you know, we need guns around. Wyoming is actually one of the more armed states from what we looked at.
So there's plenty of guns in Wyoming, at least per capita.
Yeah.
Like they have a lot of gun ownership. So there's going to be plenty of
yeah, and,
guns,
and there's going to be trade into the area. Like this is the thing about the Elder Scrolls Fallout universe at this point in time, around 30 years ahead of New Vegas especially, is there's lots of trade. There's lots of caravan companies. I mean, even 30 years ago in the new setting of New Vegas, the Happy Trails caravan were making trips all the way to Salt Lake City. So that, you know, trade gets through, ammo gets through, gun runners can buy, swap, and sell all their different ammunition. But then again, we also want it not to be like, this is probably a setting that's not going to have lots of power armor and lots of energy weapons and stuff like that. It'll be a lot more straightforward guns and stuff, but there'll be lots of melee weapons and stuff as well, and you know, spears and stuff like that as well, because we want that kind of feel. Like we plan on making multiple of these sort of ideal Fallout games, like in different settings, but we really need to keep with a theme of each place and a certain feel. Like this one you'll see is a very, it kind of feels a bit more post-apocalyptic because you've got, you know, this post-apocalyptic gang, but now they're sort of becoming an empire, and there's tribals around and stuff, and then some civilizations uplifting them. But we've still got vaults, we'll still have power armor, we'll still have these things. They're just not going to be giant power armor factions. We don't want to pull a Fallout 76 where you just sort of cram in the Brotherhood of Steel just because you need it. It's like you don't. Like New Vegas barely had it, and like you can make a really compelling Fallout game with new factions and new groups, but they're also expanding on previous ones.
Yeah. So the game also has a lot of nature, a lot of nature. I mean, it's Wyoming, obviously, and part of Utah.
Yeah.
We'll be going through all the regions and telling you about all the different nature and environments and stuff.
we should.
But first, hold on. The map we envision, it's going to be about 2 times the size of New Vegas.
Is that 2.5? And
thank you, Revan Star.
Thank you very much. Yeah, if you were curious about how we figured out the same size, I zoomed in on Google Maps over the New Vegas play area essentially, and then I just scrolled that and then pulled that up to here, and then roughly 2 times that.
Pretty much 2.
It's 2.5-ish, somewhere around there, the size of the game world in New Vegas. And okay, so we may as well discuss, like, this is the big part where I think people might have a little bit of a triggered moment, I guess, is about the horses.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll address this first.
Thank you, Mark. Could you check out the Fallout Universalist mod for Europa Universalis 4? It reimagines Fallout as a grand strategy game, and it's really friendly. I'll definitely put that down.
I haven't actually heard of that game, but I'm assuming it's something along the lines of, like, I don't know if it's RTS or if it's more like Crusader Kings or something like that. Like Crusader Kings has a really good Elder Scrolls mod, and that's cool. But
I've got it open. I've got it open now.
Tab. Who is the antagonist for the Khans? Well, there are multiple potential antagonists, potential groups. Like, so.
Oh yeah, we're not having settlement building, just to answer someone's question.
Yeah, we would rather build like unique settlements.
Yeah.
Already that have quest opportunities and stuff like that. So I guess we'll address the thing of horses, because there is a lot of...
So we've got horses in the game. We're not going to have them be like super speed. Like we don't want to ruin the feel of walking around on your lonesome in the apocalypse and having that I'm really by myself and I could be in severe danger vibes. We don't want to get rid of that. So the horses won't be able to go like everywhere. Like they can, but it just may not be that advantageous to take them everywhere. They tend to be up the top right corner of the map as well, like around the plains, as the Khans are going to be using them to kind of herd mutated bison and such, which help to supply their population with food, which also facilitates their empire expanding. They're not going to be super fast, but they're still going to be somewhat useful. And there's been art of... So you want to talk about horses in the Fallout?
All right, I'll talk in the canon. There's been mentions and there's been donkeys, and then there was a comic called All Roads. Someone just mentioned it there as well. That came with a New Vegas collector's edition, I think it was, that basically shows NCR troopers on horses and stuff. But then some people have since then said like, oh no, we didn't want horses to be canon or whatnot. But our excuse anyway would just be that Wyoming is not necessarily a nuclear target for during the war. It's nice and distant, so you could have a small population of horses there, and then over time they grow again, and now we've got horses. Now the reason we wanted horses as opposed to is because we basically need to create an empire for the Khanate, and they spread over Wyoming, like at the back, at this way of the map, like all past the Temple of Bahan and all that kind of stuff there. The Great Khans, which is now called the Great Khanate, has all of like southern Wyoming essentially, and they've done this with the help of horses and stuff like that. We wanted transportation, but horses that are at a comfortable pace that you can sort of like in Skyrim or something. Like horses don't zoom you across the map, but they speed things up, and they sort of like, it makes sense. Whereas if we had motorbikes or cars or stuff like that, you'd be across the map like that, and then that would really kill the experience. And even though that arguably it could be cool, but we didn't want to do that. But we needed to give them a form of transport. And additionally, some of this area in that big middle chunk around like Stampede and the Khanate Fort and stuff, the big Khanate territory, a lot of that can be big stretches of plains. So we wanted to give people an option to get on a horse and like speed that up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
But it really creates a good feel too. We want these big, vast plains. We want the Khanate territory to feel like big, like they've got this sort of area, and it goes beyond there as well.
And yes, we definitely do have new creatures besides horses.
Yes, bison's a huge one, and this is what, like a mutated-y, cool, kind of larger, radiated, I don't know what we're going to call it yet, some kind of radiated bison thing. But basically, this is going to create the sustenance for the entire empire through dairy and meat and herding of the bison. So they basically become like a pastoralist sort of society.
Yeah. Thomas Cross, thank you so much. Should I make build video of my own? So it'll be a learning experience for me. I don't suppose you guys would be interested taking a look at him, a basically invincible build called the Survivor. If you want, we can have a look at it, but hit us up on Twitter or something like that.
Thank you.
Oh, more super chats. Thank you very much. Hi, Michael and Scott. Just wanted you both to know I'm a huge fan of you guys' channel and the variety of content you all do. Best of wishes to you.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Very much, yeah. So just to answer someone about horses too, would we include horse combat? We would, to a degree, like one-handed sort of weapons and stuff, and VATS could also be a cool application in there.
What about throwing a grenade?
Maybe. I feel like that'd be cool, but the horse combat, a lot of the point of it too is for you to feel the threat of the Khans, like a Khan raiding party moving on horses. It's like if they start coming after you, you can't outrun them on foot. They're on horses. So they're coming in with their like guns and spears and stuff like that.
It'll be scary. And also if you're just with your own horse and it gets killed, then you're just kind of stuck on your own. And it's not like they're going to be everywhere. Like, oh, there's this stable in Whiterun and this stable here, and I can just get a horse. Like if you took a horse from Khan territory and took it to the other side of the map, you may not find another horse. Like for hours, depending on what you do.
But so essentially, just to explain it a little bit further, I think the Khanate is a good place to start. We basically, they spend a lot of time getting from, it's 2 years, I think we settled on, going from the Great Khans from New Vegas to Wyoming. They settle in the place called Green River, which is basically the capital of the Great Khanate. And Papa Khan dies and someone takes his place and announces dynasty. We'll go into this a little more detail later, but a guy called Kargan Braddock, who becomes the leader, and then in Green River already, there was a tribe called the Windlickers, which have this sort of shamanistic kind of philosophy, but basically the Followers of the Apocalypse and the Great Khans joined with the Green River. Sorry,
I just read a funny comment. Anyway,
right, with the Green River to basically In the surrounding area, they were under threat from a bunch of different tribes, the Windlickers in Green River. So the Khans decided that, okay, if you allow us to settle this area, we'll give you, the followers will give you good technology and stuff and medical training and stuff, or we'll give you protection. And that started off as a thing, but then they go to the east and they conquer the 40 Hoofs, which is another tribe which were really good with horses and breeding horses and stuff like that. And then basically they start absorbing a bunch of other tribes that sort of officially become part of the Khanate. And then they start going off into Wyoming and conquering
and
other
the interesting
ones.
thing as well is that these tribes, windlickers. The funny thing about it is that these tribes will also influence the Khans. Like, obviously the Khans' influence is the strongest, but for example, one of the tribes is going to be superstitious. And those vibes will play into the Khans and kind of add some religious elements and shamanistic vibes to them.
Yeah, we want them to become a society, not just a raiding party. So within that, because we have 30 years, so there's a few generations that you can fit in there of newborn, like core Khans, I guess I'd call them. But, you also got to consider that, of the original Windlickers, some of them, or the original 40 Hoofs, they're around still, or their children are like not too far removed generationally, if you know what I mean, from like the culture of the Khan. So, but basically all of the tribes around here would be very like firmly in part of the Khan culture, but often places like Casper and Cheyenne, like way off in Wyoming, off the game world map, the tribes would be more like vassals, I guess. They're not really in on the Khanate stuff at the moment.
And the other thing to realize as well is when you look at this map and you see all the different faction territory, and we've still got all the other factions to talk about, do know that just because this is their official territory, it doesn't mean that they have full safety and security. In NCR territory, you still may have raider gangs and people causing problems. So it's not like a quarter of the map is just going to be this big yellow Khan area where they have the control of, say, the Legion do in their own fort. Like, it's going to be spread out. On the fringes, there'll be problems. They'll have a much stronger hold over the furthest right section of the map, obviously, because you've got Green River there and that's where their hub is. Yeah. But the more you go left, when you head out from their kind of like the Khanate fort or different towns or main locations they have control of, you will still find a lot of wasteland threats, a lot of things like that.
There was a little note there. Someone who lives in Wyoming saying sugar beets. It's all that grows here. There's lots of...
sugar beets. All right, write this down.
Write that down.
Sugar beets.
I live in Green River, Wyoming, and this is badass. Yeah, wow. Well, this is where the Khanate starts. Will there be vaults because of less nuclear? There is going to be one. And, there might be some others, like, we could add in some others.
Shall we talk about that?
It's kind of hard to talk about all of this in the one section. But essentially all you need to know, Khanate Empire, it's a big thing. Culturally still warriors. They've got a priest caste with this shamanistic kind of stuff now. But now we've got other groups on the map here. You'll see someone asked if the Red Caesar's Legion. They're not in our sort of canon for this. Like, we actually investigated other ideas of having the Caesar's Legion being there and successful, but we decided not to for this one. And this group is actually a group called the Hands of the Father, which is a order of Mormons that are a bit more aggressive against the Khanate and stuff like that, trying to stop them from progressing further south into Utah.
And they're quite tribal.
And that's built on basically the new Canaanites re-establishing a town called Jericho that they made just south of this map, and with the help of Joshua Graham and stuff, and they incorporated a lot more of the tribals and stuff, and then it helped them, and they all sort of started converting to the Mormon religion. It started catching on a bit more, and then the Hands of the Father are a separate group, and we can get into them further, but essentially they're Mormons. Thank you,
SMP. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And yes, guys, there can be some supernatural stuff going on as well. And if it hasn't been made clear, this is a single player open world game, no multiplayer elements. There's no settlement building, two times the size of New Vegas. It'll be just like what you want. Yeah. Which is a big Fallout New Vegas-esque kind of game. And we're bringing back traits and all those good character building elements and heaps of player choice and no set backstory that you're forced into or anything like that?
Well, I guess we'll just go through the big... There's basically the big 5 factions. So the Khanate, there's that, but also basically part of the story there with them is recently the last Kargan was just assassinated, and basically they don't know, whoever was behind it is not revealed, essentially. And then his son, Kargan Otan, basically steps up to the plate, but then there's a bit of dissent among the people. So there's going to be different groups with different sort of ideals and stuff, and who perceive different futures of the Khanate and want to take it in different directions. So because the Khanate's such a large faction, part of the other faction stories might be involved breaking it up or sort of allying with certain members to sort of, you know, change it or whatnot, or you can just go all in on the Khanate. But basically that's one of the larger factions there. So we want... It's very clear what that feel is. There's still all the raiders and stuff. It's like an expanding empire faction.
Yeah, and there are someone saying, what about Bison? As we said, we're gonna have Bison 100%.
Yeah.
Bighorners will also be there as a separate thing based on kind of like Bighorner sheep, I think.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of animals. We also were thinking, and Thomas Cross, I got you, don't worry. We were also thinking of having the Gila monster, which is like the state reptile of Utah, I believe. It's kind of like a orange and black amphibian, which we basically want to turn into like a death claw kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain, but I think it would be really cool. And the way you could explain it, even though they're from like a specific part of Utah, is that they evolved to be like a dominant species, which allowed them to spread and eat things and go into other areas. So that's one of our new creatures that we're going to flesh out in the actual video.
Yeah.
Super venomous.
So basically, we said the Khanate, that's that feel. There's the Hands of the Father, which is kind of going to give you a little bit of that kind of like cult zealot righteousness kind of thing. And remember, they're not even affiliated necessarily with the other Mormons that are back in Jericho and stuff. In fact, I had it written in that the bishop wants Judah, the leader of the Hands of the Father, to disband and come back. And there's a little bit of conflict there. Now, there's 2 other things. So there's the 80s camp you might see in the bottom left corner. Basically, the 80s are a gang that ended up wiping out the Whitelegs, and they were another dominant gang that basically all across the 80 highway, all the way across northern Nevada, and that's where they sort of are, but they stretch right out into Salt Lake City, which, by the way, got here heavily blasted by nukes. So Salt Lake City itself is pretty not there anymore. It's like just ruins. And you know, a lot of it's been reclaimed by like nature or just big mounds of dirt and dust. It's not gonna be like Boston, if you know what I mean, like where most buildings are standing and you can walk into and such.
I'm just updating the title of this video to say, help us design a Fallout game in brackets so people know what it is when they come.
And for people who just joined, we're talking about creating an ideal Fallout Wyoming game. You'll sort of catch on. It's basically just fun and world building and stuff. So you'll see we've got that blue section of a faction as well. Sorry. The 80s tribals, they're like raiders, and basically joining them and working with them will give you that real raider role-playing satisfaction. If you just want to join, raid, and pillage, and that's all you want to do in a role-playing game, that's going to be your avenue for it, you know? Then we have another group called the Pioneers, which is this big, little blue section with Vault 33 there. So basically the story is, about the time of New Vegas, Vault 33 opens and the people come out and they establish a town in Echo. Now, about Vault 33, the experiment there that we thought would be to have that, essentially it's a society within the Vault that has extreme punishment. And to see how far a society could be pushed with extreme punishment. So essentially, for even the most minor, like aggravated, like assaults or like kind of like physical damage or violence or anything like that, like that's basically an immediate lynching with rope. Like they had public hangings and stuff.
So they'll hang you, and if you do something like minor, they'll just like lash you and stuff like this. And surprisingly, the result ends up being just a very compliant and obedient society who are very strict.
And like Vault 34, they also had a pretty well-stocked armory. And so essentially they've got this, there's this hyper capital punishment society kind of thing. And then they come out and basically they have bad experiences with the tribals. They have bad experiences with wastelanders. And they basically see the wasteland as this frontier that they've kind of got to conquer and bring law and order to. So it kind of has a bit of a Vault mixed with kind of like, I guess, kind of Cowboys on the Frontier kind of vibe. But a lot of their weapons are, you know, modern, proper, you know, 10mm submachine guns and stuff. They're
even plasma rifles and
yeah,
stuff.
with some energy weapons and stuff.
Some proper stock in their vault.
Yeah, and they've been slowly expanding, but they're really hostile to pretty much anyone else. But they're possible to join. Really anti-mutant, really anti-ghoul, tribal, and to be honest, it's really hard to become a citizen of the Pioneers. And but it's possible as a faction, but they're one of the more polarizing ones, and obviously they have big problems with the Khanate.
Yeah, they have big problems with everyone, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some that they would be neutral to, but they don't really like love any. They're isolationists.
Yeah.
They're not fond of outsiders. They probably just see the Khans as angry raiders, which many people would. But the difference between playing a Khans playthrough and an 80s playthrough is obviously like the Khans playthrough is going to have a goal in mind that's kind of larger than yourself. Like you're building an empire, you're building a society, a civilization. Whereas the 80s is raiding for the sake of, I guess, greed and fun.
Yeah.
Like it's just like we're taking things and we're having fun and we're being bad, basically. It's more... None of the factions are going to be one-dimensional, but if I had to say, well, not dimensional, but like kind of one theme.
Stricter in their values. Like we always want to have characters within the factions that you know, question the things. For example, right at the start of Vault 33 opening up and the people coming out, there was a guy called Jonathan White who helped a bunch of Whitelegs tribals, and he was considered a traitor and stuff, but he went and founded the town of Huntsville with them because he was far more sympathetic to the people, and they didn't want to just shoot them on sight and then, you know what I mean? So he did that. I will say just quickly, all of those areas that aren't sort of covered, you'll notice like places like Trainyard, Woodspoke, Ranchton, Chalk. These kinds of places are just towns that are unaffiliated with any of the larger factions. But we liked this sort of mid-strip, if you see, that sort of puts them in between a lot of factions, which gives them, you know, it gives a little... conflict zones, essentially.
No, I don't believe we've talked about the faction that is under our under our camera.
Oh, yeah.
So we don't really... I don't know if we really need to move it.
I'll just scroll up for a second.
Okay.
So basically this section here, it's called...
It's
that
where
section there is
Honeyville
called...
is.
Yeah, but there's the place... They've set this town up and they've called it Heaven's Gate. This is a faction called the Pariahs, or the Pariah League is their established name, and they're from Twin Falls in Idaho. Basically, there was a super mutant from the Master's Army who went wandering for a long, long time and basically came to the conclusion that he wanted to create a society for all outcasts, whether that be tribal, wasteland citizens that are like, you know, just don't get along with whatever relevant societies, robots, you know, super mutants, ghouls, basically pariahs of society. And he starts this faction, but they've set up a place called Heaven's Gate further south of their actual capital. So they want, and Heaven's Gate is to basically they want to establish lines of transportation. So basically, it's safe for people to come and join the Pariah League, essentially. And so there'll be lots of colorful characters and stuff like that. And there's people who doubt it, you know, it'll even work and stuff. But that's where we're getting a bunch of people in there.
Heaven's Gate is a real life cult, FYI. Okay, maybe we'll change the name. We'll see.
Right.
We'll see. We'll look into that. I'll write that down.
But I'll just put that.
Yeah, pull the map back down. Are you guys coming up with better ideas than they did with Fallout 4 and 76? I hope.
I mean, that's for you guys to decide when the video comes out.
Goal.
But yeah. Have you guys ever thought about just writing your own universe for your own game franchise? Oh, absolutely. But I feel like to expose, just being honest, like to expose our like ideas and stuff to a bunch of people, it's a lot easier to go like, oh, here's an idea for a Fallout or an Elder Scrolls before. And then once you sort of established, you know, we can do all this world building stuff. And then it's like, you know, then you can sort of rope people in. It's like, oh, we did those, so, you know, look at this fresh stuff. Whereas I think a lot, like we love the Fallout universe and the Elder Scrolls universe. So we'd like to, you know, expand it. That Fallout's got great potential for expansion. Specifically. But yeah, so there's the Pariah League. And they are obviously going to come into conflict with the Pioneers. Like the Pioneers, the road north of Echo basically has like telegraph poles with like ghouls and stuff that have been lynched off the side. Like they're really
anti-ghoul, anti-mutant.
Yeah.
They're not very nice.
Yeah. So basically they're the big five. And the reason we wanted to give... So if I was to boil down in terms of feel, the Khanate, growing empire, sort of rebuilding civilization in this sort of Khan, more aggressive kind of way. Hands of the Father, which is like a Mormon, culty, zealous kind of thing. Then you have the 80s camp, that's your Raider feel for a faction, just straight up Raider, pillaging, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Then you have the Pioneers, which are going to be more of your human... It kind of almost enclavey feel in a way in terms of their distaste for everything in the wasteland. So it gives you that real, if you want to be that real, like patriotic, let's rebuild it, America my way kind of thing. And then you have Prize Gate, which is Prize League, which is full of ghouls, outcasts, colorful characters,
different like mutated things that
and they're the
common.
These are the factions that you would have a reputation meters with, the big five, and then there's other smaller ones like for certain towns in the same way that you'd have reputation for Good Springs in New Vegas or
Novak or anything like that.
Potential smaller factions, and there will be smaller factions even within the Khanate. So you could have there's your general Khanate, great Khanate reputation, then also underneath you might have like specifically the Windlickers / priest cast type thing or 40 Hoofs or whatever, like with certain people. Like basically the Great Khanate is going to have a bunch of head characters which you can help drastically change the future of it and also how they deal with other factions. And another thing we really wanted to do is have a lot of choice and consequence but specifically consequence. Joining certain factions will have impacts on other factions. Helping certain people make you like basically this right here is impossible to have in everyone get along state. You're gonna have to make some polarizing decisions. It's gonna like we talked about.
Everything
this.
you do will have weight, and that will make the gameplay experience feel a lot better because you'll actually be thinking, hey, if I do this, something serious might happen because the last time I made a choice, something serious happened.
Yeah, because the decisions with real consequences that put you in a locked path are meaningful. It's the same in real life. If you get married, that's meaningful because you've dedicated yourself to the one person for your whole life. And that's sort of in a locked in direction, if you know what I mean. Or it's same as if any big commitment, you've got to commit, and that's what's going to make it meaningful. So if you commit to helping the Hands of the Father stop the Khanate from entering into Utah and just becoming a Caesar's Legion 2.0 potentially, and that's how they view it. But yeah.
For sure.
Stuff like that. So
I don't know if we're going to have any yes men options, but I mean, you could probably kill all if you wanted to. I mean, the 80s are pretty kill all kind of faction.
I mean, you really could try and destroy all the big major factions and just support the smaller towns if you wanted to. Like the smaller towns aren't getting up in arms. They're more at the mercy of the factions and how they're affected by them.
Yeah, so for sure. Anyway, do you want to talk about the environments and stuff and the creatures and stuff on the map more? Maybe we'll switch it over to the different view on the map.
Yeah. Just click the background. Yeah.
Bang. Okay, so now you can kind of see the geography a bit clearer.
So we'll discuss it by region as well, and relevant to like how they're going to see it as well, like with factions apart as well. For sure.
So you've got the bottom right area, which has the Hands of the Father faction there, but that's pretty much a lot of forest and a lot of like mountains, like that Red Canyon area. Specifically is really cool. It's kind of, for those who have played the Honest Hearts DLC or Fallout New Vegas, it's going to be kind of like a Honest Hearts area in parts of it where the canyon is specifically.
I mean, to give them a real like general like split, the more like north east part of the map, there's a big plains chunk, but we also wanted this mountainous forested sort of chunk that's more at the bottom there. And then it gets a bit variable to the west.
There's all kinds to the west. There's mountain ranges and flat and suburbia.
But this specific, like these, like I mentioned this before, but for people who are only just coming in now, we've divided this map into regions so that we can discuss them kind of like geographically. So it's just arbitrary decisions by us. Like this wouldn't actually be in the game, but just to discuss.
Todd Howard's here.
Todd Howard.
Thank
Here's
you
a
very
minor
much.
faction request: the Danites, a zealous warrior faction of devout Mormons. Well, we've got
This
is the Hands of the Father, which is actually in this exact area. It is an order of basically very zealous warrior Mormons that emulate Joshua Graham in a lot of ways, but in the wrong way, in the way that they wouldn't. Joshua Graham, basically, Judah, the leader of the Hands of the Father, is starting to. He basically like had Joshua Graham as a mentor until Joshua Graham died peacefully, but basically he wanted to live on in the way of Joshua Graham and continue his cause, which was like, peace for Utah among the tribes and spreading the word of God. But what essentially happens is he starts kind of reflecting the traits of Joshua Graham before the Burned Man, back when he was Caesar Leisure stuff. So like he's just very just zealous and like kind of like you've got to chill. But yeah, we'll go.
So we've got that. But anyway, in terms of creatures and stuff in the bottom right, let me know what you guys think. I'd be curious to hear. But we want to have a mutated rattlesnake.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a really cool creature. It can be found in other areas of the game, but specifically there'll be some here. Death claws will also be here a bit. Like, we don't want death claws to be everywhere.
Yeah.
But it's one of the spots that we think you could find them.
Yeah, because I can actually drop in here now. So we wanted to pull from other Fallout games when we could, like just like little nods and stuff like that. And we thought basically an intelligent Deathclaw companion from Fallout 2 called Gorus has survived and lived to this time. And he's actually hanging out with a pack of Deathclaws in a cave in this area, and that will be related to some other things. We'll expand on companions a little bit later, but so yeah, there's Deathclaws there.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of birds of prey. When we were looking, a mutated rattlesnake with a cowboy hat and its companion.
It's just like Rango.
Yeah. Okay, so there's also birds of prey. There's a lot. There is the bald eagle there. I don't know if we would do anything with that. Oh, there's also wild turkeys, which sounds like a bit of a meme, but you could make them really creepy.
Yeah.
Like if you actually put effort into it.
Some like big rad turkey thing, and it's like scary gobble and shit.
Yeah, and it looks really like gross.
Yeah, like seeing it just
burrowing owls.
Pull apart
I'll
someone.
write that down. Burrowing owls.
Like, yeah. But to talk, so yeah, you mentioned the terrain. There's Ashley National Forest, a bunch of forested region, mountain peaks, stuff like that. There's also Red Canyon, and
like, there'll be Yaogwai and stuff there as well. Yaogwai will definitely be in the game.
Yeah, because one thing, we didn't want the whole world map to just be faction dominated, so everything's factioned. That whole, from this section and the section next to it, we sort of wanted it to be, it's a lot more nature, lots of creatures and secrets and little dangerous sort of,
turkeys with psychic screams. That's it. That's
actually
and there'll also be like, coyotes and mountain lion kind of things, like mutated mountain lions.
Yeah.
Wyoming and this kind of map area in general has a lot of
you could
deer
throw that
and
in.
elk and stuff. What else?
Nuka-Cola, root beer is more popular than Coke here. Sunset
I'll just write
Sarsaparilla.
that down, root beer.
Sunset Sarsaparilla should dominate this part of the US.
Root beer, sunset sarsaparilla.
Because that's a...
All my notes are
Good
different
idea.
tabs on Google. I'm just hitting it in the search engine.
Yeah, and we can do some different kinds of Yaogwai, like the brown versus grizzly, because of whatever. I think the Yaogwai that's standard in the other ones is black bears, but
yeah. Turkeys that glow and explode like mutants.
But
and a bunch of tiny turkey minions.
So in this area, a lot of it's nature dominated and lots of creature dominated. But basically, there's that one road, and then there's Red Canyon, which, for people walking into that town, it's essentially the headquarters of the Hands of the Father, which is that sort of Mormon cult kind of thing. And their mission is to stop the Khanate at any cost. They don't want the Great Khanate expanding down into Utah and basically becoming what Judah perceives as a Caesar's Legion 2.0. So there's a bunch of, in terms of population, there's basically all Hands of the Father characters. They're like warrior members, but there's a bunch of tribals that have fled Khanate areas and they're coming through that they're helping get back into Utah while they're also going forward and attacking. And also that the hands of the Father is made up by not just New Canaanites and like sort of like standard Wastelander Mormon kind of things. Like there's even dead horses and sorrows and other members of tribes that have then taken on the faith and then taken on this like cause. And I was even thinking it would be cool to have the higher ranking members start to emulate Joshua Graham by wrapping themselves in the bandages and stuff, and then they'll like have like some sort of brown short sleeve kind of robe thing over it. And I was even thinking Judah, the main character, has that but without the face, but then also has a what's it called? A light in the shining darkness, a light shining in darkness, I think it was. The unique pistol of Joshua Graham and stuff like that. But so that in terms of that, Red Canyon's less of a town. Because they'll have like a temple and stuff, a Mormon temple, and they'll have like barracks and stuff, and then sort of like camps where they're pulling, tribal refugees down into Utah. But some of their stuff gets and north of that is Flaming Gorge, and what they've done there is they've taken some captures and Khanate members and stuff and given them a baptism of fire. Like so their idea there is like Joshua Graham said that he was baptized by water when he was born, and then baptized by flame when he was thrown into the canyon by Caesar, and then that was his sort of like, kind of like purging of the evil, essentially. So this is what he offers to captured Khans, and people who oppose them, and then offers them sort of a redemption, covers them in pitch, sets them on fire, and throws them into the gorge, and now they've been like cleansed, but they're dead. Like Joshua lived, but no one else lives. So that kind of makes them a bit scarier and stuff. And Joshua Graham's such a cool character, so a faction emulating him, but in kind of the wrong way, because in our canon, Joshua Graham learnt mercy and stuff by sparing salt upon wounds and that. But so that's that.
Also, thank you, Jordan. Really appreciate it. Don't get to see a live stream with you guys often. Support from the USA. Keep it up. It really helps. So thank you for that. And you may not have caught many live streams with us because this is our second live stream on YouTube, at least. We want to be doing a lot more of these, so you guys can always stop by and kind of help us get your ideas heard and kind of back and forth, and we'll write it down and consider it and see what we can do with it.
This is the kind of live stream we like to do, to have discussions about things.
I mean, Let's Plays are fine, but we really do like being able to share our creative thoughts with you, and also getting feedback from the community, I guess, in terms of what you think should be in an ideal Fallout game in a certain area. Because I mean, already, like, I've got a bunch of stuff to work with. We will tend to come and put in lots of effort prior to the streams, like we've done, and kind of, because we want to
give you guys a good ideas to bounce off.
We don't want to sit here and just do nothing.
When you're creating any world, it needs to have a certain amount of focus. So like, here's the game map, here's a bunch of factions, here's the theme and feel we sort of want, and direct it. And also, like, so we can back and forth it a bit and sound them against you guys, basically.
Thank you, Nolan. Appreciate it.
But so this area is still very nature dominated, and it basically, Red Canyon's the only sort of civilization sort of section there. You might like find straggles, a little people off
in this area, but otherwise it's very nature based and very dense and vertical. Like, lots of verticality here, lots of rocks and trees and other cool things that nature has.
Well, do you want to talk the section next to it?
I will just say. I mean, it applies here as well because the animals are similar. But I was thinking as well of having like a kind of, they have lots of little, like, I guess I could call them cute, but like large rat-like animals, like beavers, but also like prairie dogs and otters and stuff like that. I was thinking of making a kind of skeever-based enemy, so like a big one with teeth, and like, it's really
will this game be on Xbox One? I wish if it ever happened. Just remember, for everyone, just to double clarify, we're not actually got like the license or anything. We can't, or the resources to make these. We don't have the resources. This is just, it's a theoretical.
We will produce it into a long video that's going to be like 40 minutes, an hour long or something like that. Like our other ideal videos we have, if you haven't seen ideal Valen Wood, ideal Fallout 4 before the game came out, which was eerily accurate. Ideal Fallout 76 when we kind of said what was wrong, but then actually fixed it.
Just if you're curious, you could go after this. If you're curious, go look at the. I think the first part of the title is what Fallout 76 should have been - the ideal Fallout 76, and click that video. You can kind of skip the first hour because the first hour is a criticism of 76, but then go into the second part, which is a lot of the world building and stuff like that. I basically just took the map from 76 and then made cool factions, and what if that was like a single player or a co-op experience. But that's the kind of vibe that will be with this video when we get to it. So if you want to know what you're in for, you can have a look at that after this.
Make an ideal Bethesda video. Yeah. I mean, that's low-key what these are, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
We kind of just do what we think they should do. But yeah, talking more about that, I've got it written here as lower middle right area, the one left of the lowest right area. It's more forest and mountains. I read here that there can be a mutated lynx possibility.
Yeah.
I think a lynx would be really cool. Mutated obviously, and like all big and scary, and it's just another predator, because I think as much as we all want the same creatures to return, which many of them will, it's like, let's get some new ones. Let's get some new things going on, especially in such a different kind of environment. And you're going to have all the other things here. There will be some Deathclaw, there'll be Yaogwai, there's even going to be Bighorners that kind of just make their way through the place.
I mean, in terms of the towns there, the Sanders camp was supposed to be, at least the idea, it's related to a Pioneers quest. It's basically a bunch that buggered off with a bunch of their weapons and then went to the camp.
And thank you, Wedge AC.
Yeah, thank you.
Please, whatever you do, bring the feel of Fallout Past back. Forget you even know about 76.
Most of all, yeah.
Animal hogs.
Well, being in the West Coast, it's gonna feel a lot more like Fallout 1, 2, and New Vegas.
I mean, simply put, the mechanics that we want to implement are gonna make it feel nothing like 76.
Yeah,
like it's gonna be like really heavy role playing focus, single player only, no settlement building. So there's that Sanders camp is an area there, and there'll be a few sort of basically outlaw kind of thing, and basically down there at the bottom is Jelly Legs, which is it's basically a trading post, and it's where you're going to start the game. And it's called Jelly Legs because by the time you get there, your legs feel like jelly.
That's it. But
it's true.
And people talking about, just someone mentioned there, I missed it. This goes fast, but super mutants being there. We don't want super mutants to just be a standard enemy that's just everywhere, but there's going to be a few that are part of the Pariah League, or even around there but disagree with them perhaps. But it makes sense to have a Pariah League as this big group that is encouraging lots of super mutants and ghouls and stuff to flock to them, rather than just creating a new generic super mutant enemy.
For sure. And someone was saying, am I the only person who doesn't hate settlement building? It's not that we hate it. It's just that, I mean, I didn't particularly enjoy it that much. I know you enjoyed it more than me. It's just that for every location where it's like, here is a place where you can build a settlement, we could just have a set location that's characterized already and really cool with new characters, new side quests, and everything. I tell
you what, if the map was as fleshed out as this in terms of like towns and factions and all that kind of stuff, then there was just 3 locations with extra settlements, I wouldn't bother. But the problem is because you can sort of realize the opportunity cost in Fallout 4, where they kind of, you missed, there is no Good Springs, there is no like little town here, there, and there. It's just really kind of Diamond City, Good Neighbor, and then what's the other one, the Covenant or something.
Yeah.
But there's very few, and they don't have like lots of quests and branch. That was the problem with Fallout 4. It's, I guess in a lot of ways, it's not the settlement building, it's the opportunity cost and focus. It became focused about the settlement building.
I also think mutated hogs does sound terrifying. Apparently, they're a big problem. So we'll definitely look into that, because I guess when I'm researching, they're not showing me introduced species. They're like, here are the natural animals of Wyoming. But if you've got like introduced hogs or something,
and it makes sense, whatever's like there after the apocalypse would changed. And
that's awesome. Oh, and someone was asking as well, are we going to have the option to play as a ghoul? Maybe. We're like thinking about it. We're tossing it around, because it would be really interesting with this Pariahs faction that we've built up the top left of the map here. Because you would kind of get to be an outcast, like in a way.
The thing
and
is,
also the pioneers would hate you.
it changes your interactions drastically.
Yeah,
That's
so
the thing
it
you have
is
to work
hard,
out. Like,
but that's also why it's cool.
If you want it to feel authentic.
Yeah.
Like, do you know in New Vegas when they originally they went around with the idea of doing ghouls or super mutants as a race that you could pick? I can understand against super mutants because the gear drastically changes in terms of like what you wear, but a ghoul can just wear what a human wears, so it doesn't change it up that much. But
and same as like getting stuck in tight spaces or like what you can crouch and move under. I can imagine part of the game where there's like a pipe and you have to go under it, and a super mutant just wouldn't fit.
Yeah.
Game over.
Player homes, some of the build player homes, like maybe, but I'd even
It's not the focus,
I'd
I
even
guess.
feel like it'd be cool if you just got your own like, you know, rich looking yurt for the kind of like sort of set player homes like they do in like Skyrim or Elder Scrolls games and stuff like that. But yeah, so I guess we start there in Jelly Legs. I mean, do you know
Lots
what?
of Native American legends and creatures you could incorporate. We are thinking about that. I'll just write that down as an extra.
Just because people are,
Whoops,
I
hold
might bring up just the start and then I might take them through it just because.
we're going to take you on a journey.
So I'm just going to read from my script so far for the most part, I think, because. So yeah, basically, like we've kind of talked about, we want this to be far more of a freedom-based role-playing game. Like, if you wanted to be, your backstory is you were a raider and you did this. You don't have to be a courier or anything. You're essentially going to wake up in the town of Jellylegs in a bunkhouse. You wake up, you talk to the woman, and she asks who you are. Because, like, you know, you're a person that's presumably stayed over that night. And you have all of these different responses. So you could be like, oh, I'm a tribal, or I'm a traveler, or I'm a doctor, or I'm a hunter or caravan guard
or similar options, but with like brackets lie written next to it. So you could be like, I'm a traveler, but you know as the player that you lied.
Yeah. So things like that. And then, you know, traveler is sort of like a more generic option, but that kind of is going to affect your starting gear. So you'll come out, you'll walk out, and you're in a trading post. Jellylegs is a trading post. There's a few merchants and stuff. You have 200 caps, and you'll have a 10mm pistol with like 4 magazines worth. I think it's like 48 rounds or something. And that's it. And you'll have like some generic sort of like mercenary kind of clothes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for the support on Twitter as well. I recognize the display picture.
But having that is going to be... and then, you know, if you pick tribal, they might change it a bit. So you might have like tribal clothes and spears and tomahawks instead of, you know, the like... I don't know, mercenary armor or something. Or if you were maybe if you're a doctor, you might have like wasteland surgeon kind of outfit. So basically,
it also makes sense if you lie. If you're like, I'm a raider, and then you walk outside, you know you lied, but you still dress like a raider. It's like, well, that makes sense for the lie. Or I'm sure we can just have an option as well saying none of your business.
Yeah. And then so basically, and if you do something like that, you'll just get sort of the generic set, the mercenary, whatever, and 10mm pistol and caps. But basically, from there, you are kind of directed to go towards the town of Trainyard as like this trading hub, like by a few people. But beyond that, you can go wherever you like. You can just go off in any direction. But going to Trainyard is like strongly encouraged. And when you go there, the quests there are going to open up to interactions with the Carnate, which are just right next to you on one side, and then also the Pioneers on the others. Trainyard's sort of a very central, everything's in the middle, the quests can lead you different places, and companions. So it's a bit of a hub.
Also, Ethan was saying, what happened to the New Orleans idea? I know that was a rumor, but if anyone's interested, we actually made an ideal Fallout New Orleans. So if you want to watch that after this stream, you can, and it will kind of give you a little primer for what our video is going to be for this, because we're going to go in a lot more detail this time, and we're not going to be talking as much about like the new animations, or not new animations, but like the mechanics and that side of things, because it will just become the same for every ideal Fallout.
Yeah.
So it'll be much more talking about the factions and the interactions and the world and the creature and weapons and everything like that. I mean, I haven't even started on weapon ideas. So if you have any cool ideas for weapons in this game,
I'll just address something there. How could you not include Montana in this? So I'll just rationalize why we picked this area of Wyoming, and mainly it's because it borders Utah, and that will have a lot more interaction with the previous Fallout lore, like through, you know, trading caravans and the 80s and like bits in Utah and the Mormons. Like there's bits we can build upon, and the Carnates come to Wyoming. But the reason we didn't pick an area like Yellowstone, we considered this kind of stuff and all these areas, but the problem is it's just so much national park and land that you'd be coming across a few ranches, maybe the tiniest town in this kind of area, and then the game just becomes a sort of walking in an apocalyptic nature simulator, which is cool, but we can service that by having this southern foresty mountain area and these kind of plains, but this way we can have a lot more faction interaction and stuff like that. So that's why we sort of chose this sort of southwest
it's
corner.
a nice mix of everything while still staying true to what a Wyoming kind of Utah game would be.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can't just have a like Honest Hearts the game. I mean,
Yeah.
it'd be cool, but like we want
It
parts of
doesn't-
the game to feel like that, but then other parts to be different.
Yeah, there's going to be an overall theme, but you want certain feels to capture certain people's interest. Like, for example, I'm really into Honest Hearts and then like the tribals and stuff. I like post-apocalyptic like tribal stuff and how civilization starts to rebuild and the mythologies that they create. But I understand that's not everyone's cup of tea. So if you want to have a broader appeal, you want to bring in elements and factions that people can explore and that will interest them as well. Still, we're not going to just cram in the Brotherhood of Steel because people need a high-tech civilization. Like there might be high-tech elements in the Pariahs who have like some robo-brains and scientist kind of characters with them and stuff like that. And, to a degree, the Pioneers have like pre-war technology from their vault, which they still use as a safe house and stuff. But
yeah, watching from Wyoming.
Yeah, lots of Wyoming. I've noticed
That's
like
cool.
about 4 or 5
And we haven't
people.
talked about our perk ideas. It's probably an area, like I was saying, we're not going to dive
Yeah.
into heaps. Like we might mention some specific traits and stuff, but in terms of actual like perks, they would be similar for every Fallout game.
Just throw it there.
And thank you again. I imagine you did not use Canada as polite pseudonyms would be meme worthy. Thank you.
But just to throw it, so with the jelly, so you wake up. I thought we're just going to do it Fallout 1, Fallout 2 style, where you build your character first before you jump in the game. So that's all your special stats, that's all of your traits, that's all of your tag skills. Then, and your appearance. Then you start the game, talk to the woman, give her an option. The dialogue's going to
Who
determine.
is this woman? You're like the woman.
She's just like the woman
Who
that
is she?
runs the bunkhouse kind of thing.
Right. Okay. So the owner.
So the owner, like she's sort of asking about you and like bringing you maybe a thing of soup or something, but basically then you walk out and then you've got whatever gear you sort of said based on what like dialogue options you picked, like. And then the world's your oyster. You go off. Like, there's possibly, like, you could go and join the Pioneers straight away and not really interact with the Khans until heaps later because they're kind of going to, cross and conflict. And you might be able to play an entire game. You go join the 80s and you just raid a bunch of people and you don't even really know about the Khans until much later. Like, we kind of wanted you to be able to have these branching paths, but also affect the actual. We don't want like linear faction quest lines. Like every single faction, to a degree, is going to have some degree of choice. Like for example, with the 80s, we thought we would we want them to be very Raider in feel. So you're not going to philosophically change the 80s, but perhaps it's possible to take over the 80s by killing the chief. And then perhaps then you could assimilate them with the Khanate, or you could just choose to keep on raiding it yourself, or keep the chief and just be the chief's buddy. But you're going to keep raiding. It's very like, that's the one with less variability. The Khanate, because it's so large and it's got so many like minor factions within it, there's going to be a bit more variability in how they can go about things. And
yeah, for sure. And to people asking, why not this state? Why not this location? We will be doing ideal Fallout brainstorm live streams like this and then follow-up videos where we like fully explain it for heaps of places in the States. So don't worry, we'll get around to it.
Yeah, so
probably.
Like there's areas where we'd like to do ones that will have more of a high-tech feel in some areas. Like I feel like this one would actually be like, I mean, it's not relevant at all, but if this came off the back of Fallout 4, it's a nicer tone change because Fallout 4 was very high-tech. There's big Brotherhood of Steel, there's Institute, there's like cybernetic synth humans, and it's a lot of in teleportation and a lot of that kind of stuff. Like I feel like let's bring it back a bit to the apocalypse, like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Sure.
New Vegas, but yeah, we will do. I think, and also the person asking about Samuel there about getting around to other parts of the world. First, I think we'd like to hit a bunch of the American states and stuff. Usually because like you can pull on areas, like it's
And
such
the Americana vibe is kind of iconic to
Yeah.
the Fallout universe to an extent.
Yeah, if you just up and left and went to somewhere else completely, like it could be cool, but to a degree, it's sort of like, is the Fallout title even relevant, or could you just make a new
Apocalyptic.
IP, an apocalyptic
Yeah.
thing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I guess let's just move. So there's that section. Is there anything else to say about that bottom one in terms of nature? I mean,
Not really. I mean,
it's kind of the same as the one next to it in terms of.
yeah, pretty much. By the way, we're thinking of adding spiders to this game potentially. Like, we haven't seen spiders in the Fallout universe before. I don't think. Tell me if I'm wrong. I can't remember any spiders. And I don't even really remember seeing like cobwebs and
you
stuff.
should probably write
maybe.
a note just about weather system, but like we would like Wyoming, like different weathers and stuff, and like storm, like you could be really cool. But all of these games, I guess, would be that we're like sort of designing. A lot more of it's coming from the world building and factions and characters and story and quest opportunity and stuff. Whereas it's kind of going under the assumption it's like, yeah, we would take the max technology available. So, you know, if we can implement really cool weather systems, like we would, or if we can implement like, you know, the best graphics or the best, you know, sound or whatever, it's just like imagine it's the ideal. So imagine all of that, but to the top. Like we're not running it in New Vegas engine.
But yeah, I have no idea where the spiders are. Just bringing that back.
Right.
I just read the chat, spiders. I don't know where they are. Maybe they got too big and their webs broke, or they became too obvious because their webs were so big.
Yeah,
or
maybe the flies
alphaed
alphaed them out by being too big.
I don't know.
And ate them.
Maybe. Let's actually have a speak about the kind of environment in the bottom left of the map where the 80s will be, because that's actually where Salt Lake City is.
Yeah.
That is going to be a lot of Salt Lake City in the lore, like official, was really hit hard by nukes. Oh, I think it was like 13 nukes. It was a lot of nukes.
Yeah.
A lot of nukes hit Salt Lake City or Utah. And it was described as just being like a bunch of like steel beams and wreckage. So that is going to be, I guess, quite a intimidating area to find raiders in.
Yeah.
And a lot of other things. You might have that occasional city death claw.
You'll notice there's the 80s camp. Like I said, that would be the head of the faction where you can sort of set up. But you'll notice that the Pioneers are expanding into Salt Lake City, and the 80s are contesting them. You got to understand that this area too, where all the roads meet up, Salt Lake City is a pretty central area. All this area around it in terms of roads, which people use for trade and stuff, even without cars and stuff. You know, back in the day, the Roman Empire, it's built on roads because otherwise people get lost. You know, navigating by yourself, especially without necessarily like great technology, is not easy. It's made a lot easier if you just have a road that you can follow, which, you know, goes all the way to here. So people follow the roads. So that's part of the interest. I guess we should just briefly speak on that, is that the premise is that the Khanate is expanding and they're eventually going to go down into Salt Lake City kind of area and control this throttle point, essentially, where they could follow the Long 15 all the way down to the Mojave and access all those areas through Utah, or they could also access all across northern Nevada through the Highway 80 all the way up into California land. And if they took that, they could then use that as a launching point for further raids or perhaps conquering and stuff like that. And for the same reason, the Pioneers are trying to like secure their new world and new America kind of thing. And then, you know, and I mean, the 80s are just raiders that want to take advantage of things, but you know, they've all got their reasons, and then the Pariahs want more control of these areas, such as Ogden, and they kind of want to get rid of the Pioneers because they want it to be a safe haven, a place where people can get to safely, rather than having ghouls trying to get from Utah and Arizona and all this. They're trying to make it to this Pariah League, this beautiful place for outcasts that they heard about, but they're all just getting lynched on the way by the Pioneers. You know what I mean? So they've all kind of got reasons for wanting these areas.
And yes, there will be throwing weapons, 100%. Why not? There'll also be feral ghouls and stuff in this area, like you can imagine, like glowing ones, the kind of ghoul enemy types. There's some cool temples and stuff there as well. A really cool thing I wanted to say, near the water, right? So we can get some more semi-aquatic creatures going on. When you look into the aquatic life of the actual Salt Lake, it's really salty. So there's not a whole lot of life that it supports, but There are brine flies, which are on the outskirts, which kind of look more like waspy flies, like they're not as fat and round. So we could mutate them and have some unique bloatfly kind of things. But very interestingly, there are shrimp, which is what a fog crawler from the Far Harbor DLC is based on. Now, we could rename them to be brine crawlers, perhaps, and slightly modify them. So then you could have some, and maybe they're not as powerful because they were really strong in Far Harbor, but we could definitely have some really large fog crawler looking enemies around the outskirts of the water.
We could even have some that are like the size of Mirelurks are, but they are that shrimp
some smaller
sort of
ones,
size.
maybe a queen, brine crawler, king, queen, whatever, big ones.
Yeah.
Heaps of good stuff like that. What else do we have?
I mean, there's that Antelope Island.
Oh, there is Antelope Island, which I wrote about in the lower middle left section. But just to come back to the lower left section, I was going to say that I don't know if we'll have Mirelurks. I'm trying to find, because Mirelurks are based off crabs.
Well, this is the thing where it would be good if you
Are there crabs there? Because I couldn't find any when I was researching. I didn't look that hard, so maybe there's crabs everywhere.
I mean, that's why it would be good to have the just replace them entirely by that like brine crawler or something like that. Just give each area has different flavors. So there's some cool, like there'll be some cool bits and pieces in there, but to be honest, that area is going to be a relatively high conflict zone and / like raider kind of thing. And if you were with the 80s camp, there's a town to the north called Syrup and stuff. You'll be raiding these towns. You'll be going forth and doing all kinds of raider type activities.
Yeah, no crabs in the Salt Lake, apparently. If we move up to lower middle left where Antelope Island kind of gets cut in half, this area is like flat with like large arid grassy hills, but it does intersect a few different biomes. Like there are bits of this is lower middle left. I'm talking about, I made a mistake. I'm looking at where the Pioneers are. Pioneers area intersects a lot of biomes.
Right, okay.
That one.
Yeah.
That one has bits of forest, suburbia in the middle, mountains towards the lower left. Probably going to have ghouls in some of the suburbia places that the Pioneers haven't like cleaned out.
Yeah.
Because they would have cleaned out a bunch. And probably wolves as well around the open areas of the map that kind of border onto the forest. You could find some stray horses and bison and stuff as well, and perhaps even some raiders in suburbia areas.
Yeah.
Yep. But bringing it back up to where Antelope Island was.
Sorry, I was just going to say, like, clarify, we should start talking about, like a lot of that area is Pioneer controlled, and there's a few towns there. So Echo is going to be the most built up sort of place,
right.
Which is where they initially came out, and they used the Gek to sort of make fertile land and make the reservoir there nice and clean. They've also got Vault 33, which they still use as a sort of safe house and stockpile zone and all that kind of thing, and a fallback place, if anything went really south. Then further south, there's a place I called like Putter-T, like as in a putter for
like
golf, and then a tee, like the little thing, because there's lots of golf courses around there, all around that area. So they just sort of built that town there. Then there is also Little Mountain, which is just, I can't remember. It's just another like town name that are put there because it was on a place. I'm pretty sure it was called Little Mountain. But that's just another town. So they've essentially got two smaller towns. And that Putter-T place also kind of protects roads going south. So that's why Jellylegs is actually such a popular trading post at the moment, is because with the 80s sort of all over Salt Lake City, and especially entrances into it, but then also the roads that come up to where Putter-T is and go up towards Echo, further south, they're blocked off by these guys who will not let them through. The Pioneers are pretty it's dangerous to go that way. So most traders and stuff have been cutting through the Jellylegs region. And so it's becoming a popular trading post. And then as they go further north, but so a lot of those towns too you'll have like a lot of walled off zones. You'll see lots of lynched ghouls and tribals as warnings and stuff. But when you're actually in the towns themselves, they'll sort of function like an American small town kind of thing. Like everyone's quite, it's a bit uniform in the sort of cause. Like there's kind of like hints at indoctrination-y kind of stuff, and obviously
But they're not like some mega hostile.
No, like they're
people. Like
they're,
everyone's walking around shooting everything on
yeah,
sight or anything
it's kind of like friendly American town, but then they've got really well-armed guards. They also have a smaller population than everyone else. They just have a lot better weaponry and stuff to defend. Also, people have been asking about Enclave, and I don't think it suits this area particularly. Like, there's potential for Enclave in other Fallout areas that we might discuss, but not this one, I don't think.
We'll see.
But yeah, so that's area. A lot of that area is towns and stuff. But like I said, and the nature is like, you know, little hilly, mountainy sort of stuff. Wolves, suburbia.
Yeah, it's quite varied. It kind of intersects a few different biomes on all the borders. The one above the 80s, where there's more water and more suburbia, obviously, has Antelope Island. Now, interestingly, Antelope Island had a ton of normal bison introduced in 1893 for breeding and conservation. And they do well there because it's dry, there's native grasslands and so on.
Well, the town is...
There's millions of waterfowl and apparently porcupines. I don't know if we want a mutated porcupine, like a big, spiky, angry...
The town of Syrup there could be using, like, you know, like have little bison in their like little herds just to use for like meat and milk. And also they could be like fishing, like, well, not fishing, but like hunting those, the little shrimp type thing. The mutated shrimp stuff for food and stuff like that. So Syrup could be a bit of like a waterside town. You could have like, you know, I don't know, maybe they incorporate some like bits of, kind of like, you know, Far Harbor, how they had parts of like the big carapaces and stuff, of giant crabs and stuff on their houses, something like that.
There'll also be like your city areas with ghouls and raiders and stuff as well.
But remember, all of these city areas aren't like Fallout 4 City, which is basically untouched. If anything, it's going to feel more like Fallout 3, but perhaps even more nature reclaimed. Like, it's not like necessarily some huge radiated kind of thing. If any of that, if we decide to do more of that, it would be closer to Salt Lake further down. But where Ogden is specifically, that's where New Canaan was supposed to be set, the home of Joshua Graham and other New Canaanites, basically Mormons. So they that's all ruins now, and the land was salted and stuff by Salt Upon Wounds, the Whitelegs chief. But so New Canaan ruins, that would be cool to explore, and there might be bits and pieces. Maybe some Mormon characters give you like quests or something to go and recover certain scriptures or something that have been locked as vaults there.
There's also an amusement park there. So if we did want to bring in some of the Nuka World kind of theme park vibes just for one location, because they were cool.
Pretty sure there's also an airport there.
Yeah, I think so. And also, I was going to say, we can have an Easter egg there where you find a mutated flamingo called Pink Floyd.
Oh, yeah.
Which would just be funny. I can imagine the health bar just saying Pink Floyd, and it's like this big mutated pink bird. But basically, I don't know the exact story like off the top of my head, but the gist of it is that a flamingo escaped from this like aviary zoo, and it traveled there, and it would migrate around to a few places. But like residents saw this pink flamingo there, and they called it Pink Floyd. So I just thought that would
just be like
funny.
A fun kind of hidden
just
boss
like
kind of thing, like
little meme.
Yeah. Also, so just scraping into that region is Huntsville. So Huntsville, for context, was once again a character from the Pioneers called Jonathan White. Early on, disagreed with the treatment of tribals and stuff. And at that time, there were lots of white leg refugees fleeing from the 80s and stuff like that from further south in Utah, and also being defeated by the Dead Horses and Sorrows. But he joined up with them. He fell in love with them, with a bunch of other pioneers like Vault 33 members, who and then together basically they fled north, and they got away from it, and then they set up in a place called Huntsville, which is just this pretty little town. And so basically it's a half Whitelegs tribal, half, like not half, but probably like, I don't know, a fifth Vault dweller, at least initially. But now generations have gone by, 30 years. So now you've got some kind of like characters that are for all purposes, like they've got the education stuff, but they kind of like, they feel more like a you know, like a Megaton or whatever, but they've kind of got the trappings of the white leg tribal sort of stuff in their history. And some of the older people there are full on speaking the language fluently, and are kind of a bit more culturally like that. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a bit more of an interesting mixed town rather than just another town. And we got plenty of those. We got plenty of other just
heaps
more
of
wastelander
towns and stuff. Also, welcome to all the new viewers. I know we've got some new viewers coming in constantly. Basically, the gist of it, just quickly, is that we are designing an ideal Fallout game set in Wyoming and part of Utah. It's set 30 years after New Vegas.
Yeah.
And twice the size of the map. If we want, we can travel up and explain the upper left area in terms of the environment, where we'll just move the map down so you guys can see it. You have some flat areas here with lakes and like large shrubby hills on the outskirts and stuff. But then on the far right, you've got these two strips of basically like mountain and forest. So there's a lot going on there.
And we have a little town called Woodspoke that's sort of set in the middle because we didn't... And, you know, they will have interactions with both Huntsville, also the Ranch and Train Yard, but also the Pariah League to the left, which will sort of...
For sure. And they have their territory, as you can see, in orange. And there's a place there called Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge, which obviously has lots of birds. But we can put some like insects and stuff here as well, like some mutated dragonflies and the grasshoppers. And
I think maybe
something with a catfish.
That Salt Lake City is that mantises were everywhere.
Mantises are...
In the law already, in the established law, there was somewhere about overrunning Salt Lake or the area, stuff like that.
I think it's lower in the map.
So that might be a enemy that we sort of spread and use.
And thanks for all the chat. Thanks for all the love in the chat. And maybe we will get Camel on a stream one time. Maybe we will. But you can also have snakes as well. Yeah. Again, I don't know if we want like all these different species. It's hard to pick because
you kind of got to narrow.
Decide on a snake.
Yeah, you kind of got to like narrow it down to effective ones. You also got to consider that an apocalypse is going to have an effect on biodiversity. All of like just because there are like 15 species in one area doesn't mean they all survive, because it's obviously clearly didn't happen in other areas where only certain survived. And you know, maybe you can have more, but what I'm saying is you're not going to have like, you know, 15 variations of every, you know, like small mammal and stuff like that.
As we said, we do want to do a rattlesnake.
Yeah. I think a rattlesnake would be a very cool...
Mason, I'm going to say your name. We are reading. We're looking.
Yeah. It's hard to keep up, like also explain so much.
There's also going to be, to the right, those mountain areas will have like some waterfalls and stuff as well, which is a bit different. And I also want to put some like kind of satellite relay type of infrastructure on the top of some of the mountains to really give those like Black Mountain vibes.
Because we have that freedom where we can just invent certain
there is one really close
places. So you
could just kind of pull
it down or something like that. Heaven's Gate itself is going to be a big town. We're Blackjack, the big super mutant leader of... And by the way, super mutant, he's a first gen super mutant, so he's intelligent.
Yeah.
And he's got his big... he's got all of his you know, robot brains and ghouls but even tribals and just general humans who just feel outcast in their area. But at Heaven's Gate, which he's come down there to address all of the issues with the pioneers and stuff, because remember, their original base, the center of the Pariah League stuff, is back in Twin Falls in Idaho, which is just further north from the map. Also, I was even thinking like that the super mutants from Jacobstown actually bought into this and they went forth, but they're like in Twin Falls or whatever. But then you could have characters returning characters that come down into the Heaven's Gate area. But yeah,
you'd also have some farms and stuff around.
Yeah,
farms and like, you know, when you find like factories, just kind of like a abandoned factory. I can always remember that one in New Vegas with the path up and the little duffel bag. Not path, that. You know what I'm talking about? It's like a belt. It's like a conveyor belt looking thing with a duffel. Anyway, it's near Boulder City.
Right.
Anyway, I'm just reminiscing. We can also have frogs, perhaps. I don't know if you guys think a mutated leopard frog would be interesting.
They've got like rad toads in 76, so I don't know how much it would like...
I ain't gonna let vary. 76...
No, not take it. I just mean like it would just be a sort of like you could build off that kind of thing. Like that's the most disappointing thing for us about Fallout 76 is there's lots of cool environments and creatures that are just in a game that we don't like. So I wish, you know, some of the cool, like, you know, the honey beast thing and stuff like that as well.
The honey beast?
Yeah, it was like a big ant thing with a big nest on its back.
Oh, we can have giant ants. I remember that one.
Yeah.
I remember that one. That reminds me of something from Witcher. like a real
Yeah.
insectoid kind of
Yeah.
enemy. 100%. If we look at the upper middle area, the biggest area, I believe, if you want, could you pull the map down? I saw the crawdads, by the way. Okay, I've got it in a tab on my laptop. All right. Yep. So this is a huge area, but as far as the environment's concerned, yeah, there are mountains in part of it, but it's flat. Like this is where you're gonna have big plains. You're gonna have khans. You're gonna have like their kind of yurts and like different things spread out in different environments.
Yeah.
And
On the yellow territories.
In the yellow territory specifically.
Like the other parts, like, so just run through a few towns like Ranchton so Ranchton is such an unoriginal name by me, but it still kind of sounds cool. But like
Ranchton.
a ranch with ton,
Ranch
like ranch town, Ranchton. But basically, you know, you can imagine some sort of citizens with bison and stuff, and maybe they are one of the core suppliers of Train Yard's food. But Train Yard itself is based on Evanston, the town there, and then actually has like a cool little Train Yard thing and turntables and stuff. So they just built a town and it's called Train Yard. But that Train Yard, it becomes a pretty central hub. They do even trade with the Pioneers, because the Pioneers sometimes will go out and do it, but obviously they're not that friendly. Sometimes even trade with khans, but then like, you know, maybe they say like, you know, they're just as likely to trade you, and then as when you're on the road, they just come in a raiding party and then like take all your stuff by force. There's also Chalk down the bottom, which is just going to be another smaller town. Like some of the towns, we haven't fleshed them out as much, but they need to be there because you need to be able to, like, all small towns don't sound interesting on the first little talk just because it's the characters that make it. So Good Springs, it's the Doc Mitchell, the Easy Pete, these kinds of Trudy and these characters that sort of make your memories with them, unless they've got a very physical appeal straight away, like Megaton or something, or like Diamond City. They're memorable because it's like, this is in a stadium, or this is a big nuclear bomb site. But and then so the Khanate Fort is basically operations of military expansion going forth. So there'll be lots of, it's where all the raiding parties go out from and stuff like that. Going further back, there's a place called Stampede. Now, Stampede is the original town of the 40 Hoofs, which is a tribe that got conquered, and they were the ones that were really good with horses and know how to breed them and tame them and stuff like that. And the Great Khans benefited a lot by teaming up with them, essentially.
Braddock basically
So
marries.
So the character, one of the early ones, when they were dealing with the 40 Hoofs, Braddock basically... who's the late great Kargan.
He takes over when Papa Khan dies.
Yeah, and he kills the chief of the 40 Hoofs, but instead of just wiping them out, he marries the daughter of the chief and then incorporates them into the Khanate so that all of their horses help them expand over the rest of Wyoming and their knowledge, and also bolstering just their, you know.
And that's why you'll have some more splintered ways of thinking within the Khan Empire.
It's kind of like, imagine that those Khanate type, the Great Khan type vest things. Imagine that a little bit more Mongol and just a little more Mongol looking, a little bit less biker, but they might have exposed arms and stuff. But you might see some characters that have like tattoos that resemble the 40 Hoof stuff. So it's about their heritage and stuff. So Khan members will have tattoos like that. You know, it's not like Caesar's Legion where it's just like obliterate their heritage, obliterate their identity. Like it's incorporating it.
It's strategic as well. And by the way, I am writing down the ideas, so it's hard to address the chat and explain. So I am writing.
A lot of these towns too. So there's another towns like Black Fork and Two Chains, which are just extra towns on the map for Khans. A lot of the towns, the way I see it, they'll be made of like adobe style buildings, sort of like, you know, Shady Sands and Fallout 1 and stuff. And also adobe is just basically buildings made of earth, and they can look like architecturally sound as well, but they are it's one of the easiest buildings to make. Because it doesn't require it needs like earth and various types. You can make it like almost like, it's like a sophisticated kind of like mud hutty type vibe thing. It's not, but then also plenty of yurts around them. So you'll have like Stampede might have a few central permanent structures and like maybe temples and stuff. But then around that, there's like lots of sprawling yurts. Same with pretty much all of the towns are going to be built like this. except, which we'll get to, is Green River, which is going to have, as it's the capital, will have a lot more permanent structures.
Yeah.
And then
Did you talk about what the Great Khans are actually going to look like after 30 years of evolving and stuff?
Yeah, well,
we're really going to make them like Mongol inspired.
Yeah.
On the horseback, but kind of using like bits of like tire and other things to kind of make a Mongolian looking armor with bits of like bison fur coming out and stuff like that. But then on the horses, they'll still have kind of like biker vibes because they might have like some skulls hanging off the saddle in like a cluster and stuff like that.
And like even just like chains and stuff over like, you know, they might have some bison hide sort of saddle thing, but then it's kind of like, you know, there's like chains sort of like decorating and stuff. And also that's another thing.
And
like,
horned helmets will be much more common. It won't just be Papa Khan with his horned helmet and stuff like that. And then, of course, to make them look more wastelandy, you've got guns. Like, you know, you have this aesthetic on a horse, and then he's got a sawed-off shotgun. I mean, I'll let you guys in on a little secret, but we're actually making some merch, right? Specifically for this video. Like, specifically for this video. We want to make, like, a design. It can be on a T-shirt or hoodie, a phone case, whatever. But basically, it's one of these new Great Khanate members. Yeah. Looking really cool. Yeah. So just stay tuned for that one. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's them. You can kind of build off what you've sort of seen with the Great Khans already, but just they're you got to understand too, they've become more civilized in the way that it's not just we're a raider gang. It's like raiding's part of it and war parties and stuff like that. But they're a society.
There's a society. You've got, and the way it's set up is essentially you've got a high priestess. So I'll talk about her. All right. Do you remember the character Diane from the Red Rock Canyon? She was one of the drug dealer chicks, the chem makers, right? The blonde one. So her and her friend Jack, on the way to Wyoming, Jack gets killed. She goes into this sort of deep depression and stuff like that. But then she sort of like finds herself again and purpose within the Windlicker's religion, which then becomes the Great Khan's religion, this shamanistic sort of stuff. And she ends up becoming, at this point in the game, the high priestess of the priest caste. And the priest caste is sort of a blend of the Windlickers, bits of the Great Khan, but also follows the apocalypse humanitarian principles. So like things like medical knowledge and economics and transportation and stuff like that. And basically administration. So the priest caste actually manages pretty much all of the administration of the entire empire outside of military stuff. And the Kagan, the king, essentially the emperor, but like these are Khans. So the Kagan has complete veto over anything, but you know, he generally leave it up to the priest caste to sort of sort everything out while he focuses on expanding it. Also, someone was saying, why Mongols? Because they're already based on Mongols. Like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's where the Khan part of the name comes from, like Genghis Khan. They already have that aesthetic as well. Like you'll notice, like it's like they look more biker crossed with Mongol, but you'll notice they have on their shorts and stuff. They have like little like pads down there. Like it's kind of like parts of Mongol design. I mean, look at their and it makes sense with the whole. Look at their symbol too. Yeah, their symbol. Yeah, and the whole horse empire that we're going with. Yeah, like all the horses taking over. Like I'll just throw in an extra note. Like obviously, Fallout's not realistic. That's one thing straight off. Like I mentioned before, is that, you know, it's based off the 50s idea of what radiation is. And then obviously there's all of these concessions everywhere for, you know, it's not realistic to have all of Caesar's Legion in sports gear. Everyone's got gridiron kind of armor and stuff like these kinds of things. But it's fun and cool in these things. The same way, it's like you could argue it's like, like they don't have to maintain this sort of Mongol identity kind of thing, but they're already set up for it, and it's a Fallout game. So you want to make, when you hear the Khans team up with the Followers of the Apocalypse to make an empire, you don't then go and think of just like something really like, you know, British Empire. You think of Genghis Khan and his sprawling hordes. So, but I don't think we'll have Children of Adam in this game. I don't think. I think there's other games where they could fit in. East Coast. We want to, for the most part, East Coast and West Coast are very different factions divided, except the Brotherhood of Steel, which they like, you know, pulled in. But like, the Children of Adam are established in the East Coast. I don't know if they don't need to be on the. So I will just say, unless you have anything else, unless you wanted to dive through companions or leave them as a surprise. I mean, well, only saying theirs is that Dustbite, Thirst, and there are other places, but Thirst is going to be by Riverside and stuff. It'll be a little bit of a different vibe, and I guess that's much the same as that rest of the area. I will say, so there's the Temple of Bahan in where Rock Springs is, and I will just find it from my notes because I don't want to I mean, this is all going to come out in video form, so you're all going to get it once we've done it. You're all going to get it. But I did want to just sort of explain the religion, which might give you a little more context for the Khanate.
And guys, just any ideas you have for this game, just just say them.
So basically, their religion centers around the worship of Bahan, the great bison, born of a union between Father Sky and Mother Earth. Bahan created humankind from carving trees with his horns, and for thousands of years they cherished Mother Earth and Father Sky. But humanity grew prideful and abused Mother Earth. So in an act of vengeance, Father Sky cleansed the world of human filth with fire from above. However, Bahan still loved his creations and pleaded with his mother to protect them. In an act of compassion, Mother Earth protected few of the humans within her depths, aka the Vault Skies, and until her husband, Father Sky, could calm down. Once he was calm, humanity walked the earth once again, and for this reason, the great Khanate religion mandates the utmost respect for the natural world, lest Father Sky become mad again and cleanse the earth. So yada yada. So basically, they'll have a respect for nature and stuff, and also critical of other factions that don't. But I wanted to just make a simple, obviously that little mythology there, bison's really important, so that's their sort of main god, and created them. But all that time before, basically apocalypse happens. That's when the Father Sky gets mad, and then she takes her into the bowels to protect them from her father's anger, and then while they're in the vaults, and then they come out again. But it's just a little bit of mythology. And yes, the
80s are in the game.
Yes,
100%.
Yeah, the 80s bottom left.
They're going to be all around Salt Lake City.
Because they're spread across all the highway. There's not a lot of lore on them, but all you know is Northern Nevada and they're raiders. But the J.A. Sawyer's Fallout RPG, which is his role-playing thing, and he's one of the dudes that worked on New Vegas. I think he was in the lead designer. But one of the big roles. But he basically, he was saying they were using the 80s signs along the highway for armor and also to sort of denote rank, and I just thought that would be a cool idea to just keep going with that as well.
100%.
But
and yes, we are going to do a live stream about building an ideal Elder Scrolls 6. We even do them 4 separate locations, the ideal Elder Scrolls 6 Hammerfell. Yeah,
someone says there may be an NCR scouting party. This is one thing we'd not necessarily that, but through all of these different factions and traders and stuff, and certain characters, we want to reference and have things come into this game that make it feel like it's part of the larger context, which, the Khans is already, the Khanate, the biggest faction in this game, is built off a previous faction and one of the specific endings from New Vegas, plus the whole Hands of the Father Mormon faction, connected to Joshua Graham and stuff, and then the 80s are mentioned in Honest Hearts, and you have bits and pieces from everywhere that all bring into one big context.
We got to have the Crawdad Gauntlet, mate.
Yeah, I don't.
You're obsessed with crawdads. And yes, we will have, as we've been saying in other parts of the stream, the Mormon religion featured 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So just for reference, to context, someone asked about Fallout lore, how does it fit in? This is all, we've had to make some canon decisions, and
we'll be making different canon decisions for every ideal Fallout game to make them as cool as
there's some cool opportunities with Caesar's Legion. Actually, originally we were going to do have Caesar's Legion be successful and take New Vegas and have that be the new
We were going to have the game set in the bottom right of
over towards Denver.
Wyoming, and near Denver and stuff.
And Cheyenne.
And see the Legion and everything like that. So in terms of other ideas that we have, did you want to talk about companions in this stream?
Yeah, we can talk about companions.
You want to talk about companions?
So
let us know your ideas for companions.
So
Scott's got a bunch.
So I made 4 companions, but I didn't you can make more, but I didn't want the way I see it is I like companions that are more focused and have more interactions and more consequences and stuff with it, rather than just listing off a bunch. So there's basically there's one male companion, one female companion, one ghoul who's also male, and an intelligent Deathclaw. I'll start with the intelligent Deathclaw because he's actually a previous companion from Fallout 2. Basically, he's the last of his kind. And he went off into Arizona in the 7 years between this game and Fallout 2. He went off and he's basically like a sort of scholarly type kind of character, really interested in the world and stuff. And he goes and learns a lot. But at the end of the day, he's still sort of an outcast because if you could look this up, but Goros basically, he's an albino Deathclaw, which is described, or albino. I know people don't like how Australians and albino. Other people pronounce it. Anyways, he's got a dark grey hide, it's described as, but red eyes. And he hunches over and sort of puts this big, long-sleeved brown sort of cloak over him. And what he does to tell people when he talks is that he's sort of like really deformed human, and he doesn't like hiding. He doesn't want to show his deformities and stuff. And that
like
works
a really
sometimes.
Big Jawa, just like.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But basically, what happens is he goes around. His life, but he craves kind of his kind. Like he wants a family and people that, you know, that are like him. So he goes to an area which is going to be around kind of near the Red Canyon National Forest kind of area. And then he finds a pack of Deathclaws. He tries to live alongside them. An alpha Deathclaw basically comes and tries to, like, you know, beat him out, scare him off. But then he beats the alpha Deathclaw. So Goros is the new alpha. And then he, copulates and procreates with all of the other Deathclaws there. But he was hoping that his children have the same mutant genes as him that have intelligence, but unfortunately they didn't. So he sort of feels even more alone. He can never know his children in the way that he really wants to, or other his kind. Like he used to have conversations with his father, who was an intelligent Deathclaw before, but like way back in Fallout 2. But anyway, so going forth, there could be quests where it's like you're going to hunt the Deathclaw, or maybe it's like investigating disappearances or whatever, and then you basically come to find him hiding out in this cave, and then essentially he relishes in the opportunity to have a conversation with you, and he's interested in sort of kind of exploring, but he doesn't want to leave because there's a lot of hunters and stuff going around trying to kill out the Deathclaws, which is his family, and you can basically help him kill the hunters and stuff, and then he'll join you because then he knows his family's safe, at least for a while he goes off adventuring.
There's also another companion.
Well, quick thing, sorry, just like
we don't want to tell him everything.
Not everything, but just working with the Pariah League. He's one of the few companions. Sorry, he's one of the companions that. Sorry, Pariah League's one of the few factions that he'll be able to work with well. You and him, because a lot of others will be opposed to a giant Deathclaw.
Yes. There will also be a companion called Hatch.
Yeah.
Who, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we're going to have him in Pioneer's territory. Yeah. And you can save him from being hung. Yeah. Basically. So when he's a ghoul. He's a ghoul companion, if I didn't say that. And the interesting thing about him as a ghoul, I mean, you can say all the things about the mystery about him, but something that's really cool about him is he isn't necessarily like pro pariahs, even though he's a ghoul. Like he doesn't dislike them. He thinks the leader's heart is in the right place. It's just that he doesn't think it's realistic to have this kind of faction where everyone's vastly different, kind of all get along and take over and create peace. And he just thinks it's a bit too idealistic. Yeah. Which makes it interesting because he is a ghoul, and when you find him, he's literally being like, wronged for being an outsider, at least as far as the pioneers are concerned. But he's very, very, very interesting as far as mystery goes. So if you want to elaborate on that.
Well, when you first meet him, you can there's an option to actually just let the hanging happen and the pioneers do it. And then he's dead. He's gone. Companion gone.
Yeah.
Or you can intervene and step in, but it's likely to be violent. I think like maybe if you have high speech stuff or something, you'll be able to like maybe convince him, let him go or something. But that kind, come into conflict with your reputation with the pioneers. But basically you realize he's a real happy dude, and he's sort of considers you his guardian angel. But when you save him, but one of his eyes is gone, his left eye, but it's replaced with a wooden eye that's painted. And he just explains that that's like from ghoulification and stuff. But what's interesting is as you go around to different towns and you meet different people who know him, they know him by different names like Timber and Barrow and I had a few other ones. But basically that leads you to believe that Hatch isn't even his real name. And then there's other mystery and stuff that goes on. Like you can inquire and he'll give you like little hints and bits and pieces, but he never just opens up about all of his past. And at one point, these ghouls basically come after him to kill him. And you have to defend him with him. And then they all have these ceramic masks on. And basically he explains that he was part of this cult, but no one leaves the cult, but he did. But there's all of these sort of things that like that sort of add to this sort of mystery. But part of the discomfort for the player is that you'll never really know him or can trust him entirely. Because his character is really likable. He's this really happy, friendly dude. And you really want to know him, but you just can't because you don't know. He could be a fake name. You don't know his past, like when he was ghoulified.
So it feels a bit unsettling to actually stay with
you
him.
never know what to expect when, interacting with people who know him or whatever, or he could have all kinds of problems, like those cultists coming after him and stuff.
I think we might leave the other two companions for secret mystery.
The other thing I was just going to say is that opens up to fan fiction kind of stuff and people to think about. It allows people to come to their own conclusions about their past, which is cool.
For sure.
We can talk about the.
Do you guys want to hear about the other companions? Or do you guys want to talk about, I don't know, what other topics?
The chat's turned into a party. I love it.
Let's have a look.
We might be able to put in a Mormon follower. Oh, okay, we'll discuss this one first. So, in Trainyard, there is a character called Matthew, who is a Mormon missionary, and he is from Jericho, which is further down south where other Mormons and stuff are. But he's completely chaste. He's very pro-law, very anti-degeneracy, which is, his idea of degeneracy and stuff. So, he's a very religious type, but his heart's in the right place and stuff. But basically, part of his arc would be meeting Judah, the leader of the Hands of the Father, and he could be convinced and reaffirmed to join Judah and follow him and so on, or you could convince the otherwise. But I thought it would be cool if Matthew is part of joining the Hands of the Father. If you do that, he then wears the robe and then wraps all of the bandages like Joshua Graham and stuff, and starts repeating all their mantras, and immediately becomes completely hostile to the Khanate, to the Khans and stuff, closing off that opportunity for you if you take him in that direction. Or you can take him the other way, where it's he's kind of got to come to terms with the fact that you've got to be patient, you've got to be peaceful, converting people to the true way, to the Mormon faith and all that kind of stuff is going to take a long time, and you can't do it sort of forcefully, or you can't act like Judah and yada yada. Also, reconciling, he has this innate hatred of mutants, disgust, but he's trying to reconcile that with his faith of trying to be nice to people essentially, and welcoming of all God's people. But he just really, really doesn't like ghouls and stuff. A bit of disgust kind of thing. But there's reconciling that. There's a few things there.
All of the companions we want to actually be dynamic in the way that you can change them. You have meaningful impact on the companions. It's not like they just have one development arc that only goes one way.
Yeah. And that's going to affect your stuff with factions. Like I said, if you take Matthew and he joins the Hands of the Father and he gets right into it, now, like the rest of the Hands of the Father, he is anti-Khanate, and it's going to be really hard. You can't work with him because he'll just be hostile and fight them. So you either have to abandon him as a companion, or you're anti-Khanate or side with him, or and they're all polarizing to a degree. Obviously, having Hatch working with the Pioneers is not going to work.
Yeah.
Parisley works well, but there's a few There's another one which is a Khan character called Turi, but I guess we can just explain that later in another one. Turi, the fourth one. I can explain that in the video.
Yes,
I don't explain now, but
we'll leave something up to.
We can just because there's going to be a lot. Also, just one point, we would want companions to work like New Vegas, and where you can have an actual companion, like a sentient sort of proper one, and then also a small one like a dog or an Edie. But we would have a few options for that. But perhaps more companions, but like once again, I like small. I just like quality. I mean, if you can do 10 companions with heaps of quality and interaction, sure. But, you know, if it's only realistic for you to do 4 of those or 6 of those, then I would say 6 or 4.
Yeah,
whatever.
100%.
I mean, are there any other like questions and stuff? We have talked factions. We'll leave this up for a while after, so people
I think
haven't
everyone
seen
watching this will leave this up for I don't know 2 hours or something.
Yeah. Oh, maybe even
or even more.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. But like we'll leave it enough so that everyone watching the video right now can watch everything.
Yeah.
When it's done.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Let us know.
Yeah. So factions.
When's the full video?
People
coming?
are recapping the fact.
The full video
probably be next week. Like later next week.
Yeah, should be.
Yeah.
The weather in the game, I actually don't know if we're going to do dynamic seasons or not. I mean, I would like dynamic seasons, but I also think it does feel cool in a game when you know this is the snowy area or this is this or whatever. So we're still talking about that 100%.
Probably not rad storms.
Yeah, or at least, you know, not many.
Like
you could maybe have one in Salt Lake City, like occasionally, but we don't really.
But the big appeal is the idea of snow, because you know obviously like Wyoming and all these areas get snow. So if you had changing seasons, it would be cool to see the same areas covered in snow. But once again, that could kind of be like difficult to do with like, because all that snow has to interact with all of the buildings and like how horses walk through the snow.
And thank you. We like this community as well. Like this is the ideal, funnily enough, the ideal stream for us is to sit here and kind of talk about ideas with everyone. 100%.
But
we love you too. We love you too.
But yeah, so I don't know. Like, let us
George Pingers,
know what factions.
That is a mad.
I mean, I will just disclose that you guys are developers for Bethesda. I feel like you are. We're not. But I also want to just throw out there that this is all world building and factions and story and characters. Like, obviously, we don't have a good grasp of. Well, we do a bit, but like. Actual developers will know, like who code all the games and stuff, will know the amount of work or whatever this would take or things like that. So, but we try and consider that to make it realistic. So, you know, and this is also ideal. So this is like twice the size of New Vegas, but consider that New Vegas was made in like, you know, a year and a half and it was buggy and stuff, but just assume that they have 4 or 5 years to make these things. If they had that with a full team working on it, like you could make a pretty amazing game. But, I would, I just saying, like, we're very well aware that we don't know the ins and outs of all of the coding and the work that goes into that. So we try best as we can to measure that, like, to pull back on that.
But as someone said, New Vegas was rushed as.
Yeah, exactly.
New Vegas was rushed and it was still very good.
Yeah.
So, especially after all the bug fixes and stuff. I'm lucky. Tell me if there's anyone else out there. I don't get bugs.
Yeah.
Like, well, I do, but not often. Like, very rarely. Like, a lot of times games will come out and I'll see a lot of people saying like, oh, but there's so many bugs. Oh, I'd like it if it wasn't a buggy mess. And there I am playing it and it's all
fine, yeah,
clean. And it's not just because sometimes I prefer to play on a console just because I like the feel of a controller. Even on a PC.
Yeah.
I just won't get that many bugs.
Yeah. The vault idea is cool. Like we this is the thing where we could put a few different vaults around, but like because you know each game has a few vaults that are like interesting and tell their own little quest stories and stuff. We're only gonna have like one vault that's an actual faction.
Yeah, for sure.
But
yeah, and thank you to everyone who's come along and watched and supported us and contributed their ideas. We'll really try and work in as much of what you've said into the video as we can, if we think it's cool, obviously. And
like I said, we're not going to talk too much about characters, like stuff, like mechanics and perks and like listing all those kinds of things because we might list a few. We will have
upcoming videos actually, guys. So if you want to stream, we might be doing a stream about an ideal Fallout game, but things that you want that we don't want. Or like kind of getting a list of like a bunch of ideas that are more controversial and then making other videos about those and saying like, you know, what do you think about I don't know, motorcycles, better things than that. Or like,
Yeah.
you know, all the things that people are more like on the fence about, or like bringing skills back. Like I want to bring skills back.
Yeah.
100%.
Like, yeah. So we'll do these discussions beyond, like, we like these live streams doing that kind of thing for some of the, like sometimes like we could go into just one of our videos might be an ideal like stats perk system or something like that. And then we'll do a live stream before it. Like we just plan on, I think it will be a real cool idea if we start doing a lot more of these live streams before the videos.
Yo, I can see my house from here. And no, we don't have our own. Well, I guess we do have our own studio. It's an office space.
Yeah.
We don't know if it's temporary or not, but we're here.
People are saying Zetans and aliens.
We could put in a crashed ship.
Yeah,
or
I'm not a
something.
fan for the most part. I would put them as like a little thing. Like Mothership
nod.
Zeta is a... Ugh.
You don't like Mothership Zeta?
No, it's bad DLC, man. Sorry. Fallout 3's, my favorite DLCs from Fallout. Operation Anchorage is okay for what it is, but like the Pit, Pit and Broken Steel's good because what it does and adds it. And then Point Lookout.
Yeah.
But like the first and the last ones were kind of...
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's it for now.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for tuning in. Remember to come and see us on our next stream. Just to see the actual video that we're going to turn this into.
And to clarify for the last people, this is not actually developing a game. It's a thought experiment. This is us like basically making a theoretical game, an ideal game. It's not like legitimate. Maybe when Fallout 5 comes out, we'll find out that Bethesda's just hitched all our ideas and put it into a game.
Whatever. then they'll have a good game, won't they? Yeah. Yes, this was a blast. We will be doing it again.
Yeah, we'll try and do these at least weekly.
We'll try. We'll try.
But yeah.
Anyway, how do we end the stream? Let's sort this out.
All right.
Because we're all new to this.
All right. Bye-bye.
See you guys. Thank you so much.